Today we're counting down the top 15 most mysterious old buildings ever discovered. From ancient megaliths to strange fortresses, these ancient structures have unknown purposes and have baffled researchers for centuries. Let's begin today's video with number 15, Skara Brae. As far as Neolithic standards go, the buildings at Skara Brae are in incredible condition. Consisting of 10 clustered houses built using stones and soil, the small homes within this tiny community are complete with stone-built pieces of furniture including cupboards, dressers, seats, and storage boxes. However, around the year 2500 BC, the entire site was abandoned under mysterious circumstances. And while the reasons for the abandonment are still anyone's guess, causes such as the impact of climate change and catastrophic natural events have all been theorized. Number 14, the Church of San Juan Parangangkuturo. On February 20th of 1943, a volcano began to rise from a Mexican easily one of the world's most secretive places, and the Ryugyong Hotel may just be its most easy-to-spot mystery. Towering in the capital city of Pyongyang, the construction began in 1987, yet halted a few years after once North Korea began to face economic troubles. While the exterior was never finished, in 2011 an LED screen was fitted to display propaganda messages in 2018. It never really hosted a single visitor, and whether or not the regime plans to actually finish the hotel remains a complete mystery. Number 12, Golden Finance 117. When the construction of the Golden Finance 117 building began in 2008, it was set to be the pride and joy of the Chinese city of Tianjin and the 5th tallest building in the world. However, in 2018, the Chinese government put a ban on all skyscrapers over 500 meters. This in turn halted construction on the already delayed building, and it was promptly put on the market. However, it has no buyers, and ever since, little information has been published on 20 tons, making transport nearly inconceivable. Furthermore, the whole complex uses an exceptionally advanced form of precision cutting, where all the stones fit together like jigsaw puzzle pieces. Incredibly enough, this could be the first evidence of mass production technology in the Americas. Number 10, Çatalhöyük. For thousands of years, humans have lived together in cities, and Çatalhöyük is the oldest example of such a settlement. Now, it should be made clear that, technically speaking, Çatalhöyük is not really quite a city, but a proto-city. That is to say, a settlement that's different from a regular city due to its lack of planning and centralized rule. Yet, despite this relative anarchy, the city seems to have been well-run and home to around 10,000 residents. These residents lived among its interconnected system of primitive homes, which consisted of simple mud brick rooms that had to be added continuously as the community grew. What makes this conglomeration of buildings strange is that it appears to be no commercial or public buildings, so seem to have had a tradition of burying their dead within their homes, as each dwelling has a large number of human bones buried underneath it. This in turn has made this strange ancient city rich in historical and cultural significance. Number 9, the Moai of Easter Island. So as far as mega projects go, few are as remote as the one that took place on Easter Island, located about 3,500 kilometers off the coast of Chile and about 2,000 kilometers away from the nearest inhabited island, the Rapa Nui people on Easter Island, yet they still managed to live there for centuries. Throughout their time there, they're believed to have constructed almost 1,000 massive Moai statues, with the majority believed to have been created between the years 1250 and 1500. In order to make them, the process began by picking out a large stone bed to be used, with the average stone being about 18 tons, and the height of this stone being upwards of 6 meters. These stones would then be transported to the area in which they used to be buried via a system of boards and ropes. With this process, human hands were behind their movement. Others believe that the Moai were rolled to their location on tops of logs. Also, their purpose hasn't been fully determined. While they likely had some relation to a family's ancestors, they may have also stood as symbols of authority and power, making them a multi-purpose structure. Yet despite the fact that all the intricacies of their history haven't been ironed out, a visit to Easter Island is still well worth it. Number 8, the Coral Castle. Castles can be made for many reasons, but no one's quite sure why a Latvian man named Ed Līdzkalnis created the Coral Castle. Born in 1887, Ed used his skills to create a castle out of fossilized coral that stands at over 7.5 meters tall. He used coral stones that were heavier than any of those used for the Great Pyramid of Giza, and has many eccentricities inside, such as a sundial, stone rocking chair, and a heart-shaped stone table. However, when asked what his motivations were, he vaguely and rather mysteriously said that it was a tribute to his working methods. The only advanced tool that he spoke of was using a perpetual motion holder, and given the massive size of the bricks and strange material, many began to speculate that he was using black magic to build his castle. He also made the strange decision to move the entire castle partway through building it. While it was originally located in an extremely remote part of the Everglades, he ended up spending 3 years transferring it to the outskirts of Miami after hearing about talks of development in his area. Unfortunately, Ed's incredible castle was never fully completed. That's because in 1951, he passed away due to kidney failure at the age of 64. The castle was then transferred to the hands of his nephew. From there, it moved hands a few more times until finally being sold to a company by the name of Coral Castle Incorporated in 1981 for the 2024 equivalent of about $600,000. It's now become a popular tourist attraction and a great place to visit if you want to experience Ed's incredible yet mysterious legacy, more or less where our understanding of the structure stops. You see, while we know that the Sphinx likely represents Khafre and forms an integral part of his pyramid complex, why it was built in addition to his pyramid is a mystery. One of the leading theories is that it was made as a symbol of the pharaoh's connection to the gods. You see, if you stand at the eastern niche during sunset at the March or September equinoxes, you can witness a dramatic astronomical event. As you stand there, the sun appears to sink into the shoulder of the Sphinx, and beyond that, into the south side of the pyramid of Khafre on the horizon. At the same moment, the shadow of the Sphinx and the shadow of the pyramid, both symbols of the king, become merged silhouettes. According to Egyptologist Mark Lehner, quote, "The Sphinx itself, it seems, symbolized the pharaoh presenting offerings to the sun god in the court of the temple," end quote. Now, if that wasn't cool enough, Mark Lehner also has observed that during the summer solstice, the sun appears to set midway between the silhouettes of the pyramids of Khafre and Khufu. This in turn suggests that the architecture, definitively, if true, it would make the Sphinx even more impressive than it already is, and make this mysterious structure one of the ancient world's best examples of architecture linking the sun to human labor. Number 6. Horyuji. Wood is a material that doesn't tend to stand the test of time. After all, it is susceptible to rot, mold, and moisture, and it's for this reason that most of the oldest buildings still standing are made of stone. Yet, against all odds, Horyuji seems to be an exception to this rule. That's because while it has had its fair share of repairs, it stood strong for 1,400 years. Considered to be the oldest wooden structure in the world, the Horyuji Temple is located in Japan's Ikaruga City. Constructed sometime between 550 and 710 AD, its central area consists of a main hall and 5-story pagoda. The pagoda is the oldest structure at the complex, as the wood is reportedly come from a tree cut down in the year 594 AD. This leaves us with one important question: crude tools at their disposal. Yet the expertise at play here goes beyond just picking the right wood and hand-cutting it to perfection. Rather, the trees chosen were very specific. You see, as an organic material, wood is both uneven and unpredictable. This goes beyond just lengths, diameter, and age. Wood expands or shrinks depending on the moisture content. It also bends towards a certain direction depending on the angle at which the tree grew relative to the sun. Furthermore, some trees grow faster and some grow more slowly, affecting their sturdiness. Thus, the location of the tree and how it looked was pivotal to its suitability for the structure, and specialist carpenters known as miyadaikus held the knowledge necessary to select the correct trees. Unfortunately, this is an art that's been lost with time. It's also worth noting that Horyuji continues to hold religious importance. It's still the spiritual headquarters of the Shotoku sect of Buddhism and contains about 2,300 pieces of very early Buddhist sculptures, relics, and art alongside an active monastery. Residential complex. Located in Micronesia, the complex consists of a series of artificial islets and buildings in the shallow water next to the eastern shore of Pohnpei Island. The site encloses an area that's approximately 1.5 kilometers long by about a half kilometer wide, and in total it contains nearly 100 artificial stone and coral islets. These islets, it seems, were used as homes for the ruling elite of the island's Sotaler dynasty. You see, the Sotaler dynasty had succeeded in uniting the clans of the island of Pohnpei. However, their very hold was dependent on the continued loyalty of the conquered chieftains. So in order to keep everyone in check, these chieftains were ordered to leave their home villages and move to the city proper, where their activities could be closely monitored. In total, it's believed that about 1,000 people lived there. However, due to the area's complete lack of fresh water and extremely limited arable land, Nan Madol had to be fully supplied with materials from other areas. Yet the big mystery of Nan Madol are its origins. While local legends suggest that the stones were flown, dynasty fell. By the time the Europeans showed up in the 1800s, Nan Madol had already been abandoned. However, its status as the only ancient city to ever be built on a coral reef makes it a very special, very unique, and in many ways very mysterious place. Number 4. Göbekli Tepe. While it might not look like much, Göbekli Tepe is a massively important building. That's because it's widely considered to be the oldest human-built structure still around. It's located in southeastern Turkey. It came into being at the tail end of the Stone Age, and it's believed to be about 11,500 years old. It's absolutely massive in terms of size and scope, and consists of large T-shaped pillars that climb down a mountain face. While not intact today, they were installed into and supported by some combination of walls, pedestals, and a roof, and on each pillar there was a monolith. These monoliths had a variety of subjects, including early depictions of humans, dangerous animals such as vultures and jaguars, in other words, the potential origin of religion. However, its significance stretches far beyond its religious importance. You see, until the site's discovery in 1994, it was more or less assumed that humans during this time period lived in hunter-gatherer societies. Furthermore, there's no real evidence that hunter-gatherers built massive monuments, as their nomadic lifestyle made it an unreasonable endeavor. However, the size and scale of Göbekli Tepe suggests that those who built it were either not hunter-gatherers, or if they were, far more advanced than historians are giving them credit for. This in turn suggests that humans at this time had an advanced system of social cohesion. If this is the case, there's a potentially third alternative, that Göbekli Tepe is a relic of a society that was in transition, not fully nomadic but not fully agricultural. This would make the site a truly fascinating study in the shift from one dynamic of life to another. To add further mystery to this site, it seems to have been filled with soil and abandoned and around built sometime between the years 1253 and 1278. However, unlike most castles, which were made as military forts or royal residences, Huska Castle was made to house demons. While this may sound ridiculous, the evidence in favor of this conclusion can't be ignored. You see, unlike most castles, Huska Castle was built in a remote area filled with forests, swamps, and mountains. This placement was also far from all known trade routes, making its location seemingly pointless. Now, if that wasn't weird enough, it almost has no external fortifications, no source of water except for a small cistern to collect rainwater, no kitchen, and at the time of completion, no occupants. In fact, the original construction was so odd that it omitted stairs from the courtyard to the upper floors and had most of the structure's defenses built facing inwards. Looked at objectively, it was almost as if the purpose of the castle wasn't to keep invaders out, but rather to keep something trapped within. And trap it did, home to a supposedly, in any case, despite its supposedly demonic duties, the castle has had a few occupants. For example, in 1639, it was reportedly occupied by a Swedish mercenary named Oronto, who allegedly worked with black magic in an attempt to create an elixir for eternal life. After falling into a degree of disrepair, the structure was fully restored in 1828, and in the 1870s purchased by Josef Simonek, who was the president of the famous auto company Skoda. In the 1940s, things took an unexpected turn for the worse when the Nazis occupied it, and allegedly they used the place for occult experiments. Today, the castle's open to the public, and many parts of it can be visited on tours. Now, it also should be noted before we end this one that some of the history surrounding the castle is a bit sketchy. After all, scholars have since discovered cracks in its histories, and the evidence of the Swedish mercenaries Oronto's existence is rather dubious. Yet there are some who allege that the whole is simply a cash grab, and that in reality it's just a normal pit. Yet despite there being some inconsistencies, as it effectively stopped riding horsemen and gave Chinese soldiers the cover necessary to launch attacks. It also allowed Chinese soldiers to more easily organize offensive actions. After all, the historical record seems to indicate that at least during the Xiongnu period, the Chinese were the aggressors far more often than the Xiongnu. Yet despite being such an important and well-known structure, for years one of the most basic facts about the wall was a complete mystery. That's because it wasn't until very recently that we learned how the Great Wall of China was made. You see, it turns out that in order to make the millions of bricks that line the most iconic and well-fortified part of the wall, the Chinese government had to rely on laborers from down south. Often pressured to migrate north, work was grueling, yet incredibly they managed to make the wall quickly and effectively. The secret to the strength and effectiveness of the wall seems to be found in the mortar. You see, if you visit the Great Wall, one of the first things you'll notice is that, unlike Western buildings, the mortar is white. When the Westerners first visited, they asked about this, and it's shake-resistant and stronger than modern mortar, making it an incredibly durable material. However, despite the wall's strength, it didn't last forever. By the mid-1600s, the combined threat of the Mongols and Manchus became too much for the Chinese Ming dynasty to withstand. This came to a head when, in 1644, the commander of a section of the wall surrendered, opening the gates to allow the Manchus to stream into China. The end result was the replacement of the Ming and the establishment of the Qing dynasty, and from that point forward, the Great Wall was no longer used for border defense. From then on, it fell into disarray, and while it was manned for ceremonial purposes during World War II, it was only around the mid-1950s that reconstruction efforts began in earnest. Number 1. The Winchester Mystery House. Now, generally speaking, most modern buildings have a purpose. That is to say, they were built in order to serve one function or another. However, if you travel to San Jose, California, you can visit to take advantage of the warm weather. With little to do and a large fortune, Sarah got to work on what became a lifelong renovation effort. Within just a few months, she's already added more than a dozen rooms, and upon her death in September of 1922, the work still wasn't finished. Despite being incomplete, the end result was pretty impressive. Thanks to Sarah's efforts, what stands today is a 4-story, 160-room and 24,000 square foot mansion. In fact, the home has 2,000 doors, 10,000 windows, 47 fireplaces, 17 chimneys, 40 stairways, 40 bedrooms, 2 ballrooms, 13 bathrooms, 6 kitchens, 3 elevators, 2 basements, and a wood-paneled Venetian-inspired dining room. This makes it one of the largest and most luxurious homes in the city of San Jose. However, the reason why it earned a top spot on this list is thanks to the fact that many of the rooms are hard to explain. After all, the home features doors into blank walls, interior windows, and stairs leading up to the ceiling. This seemingly wasn't the work